right, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Save the Track Bike, presented by Hexagon Cycles. I'm your host, Josh. On today's episode, I have Kelly Neuner from Formula Femme. She's an editor for Pretty Damned Fast. She's a track racer, fixed gear crit racer. We talk about a lot of things, from the fixation crit to mission crit to vegan donuts to all kinds of stuff. And then but before that, we have a quick preview of the Velorama Festival, which is in conjunction with the Colorado Classic, which takes place in Denver. So, yeah, a lot to cover, so let's just jump into it.
I'm John Tarkington. I'm the Cycling Experience Director for RPM Events. RPM Events is the company that owns and runs the Colorado Classic and Velorama Festival here in Denver.
So let's talk a little bit about what Velorama is.
Velorama is a music festival that meets bike racing, and together they're trying to make something beautiful, and we'll see how it comes together in 2018.
So the first Velorama was last year, right?
Correct.
So what can we expect that'll be, like what lessons were learned, or what things can people expect this year when they go?
You know, as with any first-year event, there was a lot that was learned, both on the music festival side and the cycling side. So the big major changes that people will see this year is a very, very consolidated footprint. Last year, we occupied a good chunk of, I want to say, close to 12 blocks of Rhino. And this year, that's not the case. It's all taking place within the Coors Field parking lot, which was the concert venue last year. So we'll have the start-finish of stages 3 and 4 of the Colorado Classic adjacent to the music festival stage. So it should make for a pretty exciting Saturday and Sunday with that consolidation and joining. Additionally, there's not going to be a Denver Flea presence this year, and instead that area will be occupied by cycling experience activities and additional expo space for vendors.
So last year you guys had a fixed gear category, and I know in this podcast that was my first fixed gear crit ever, was racing last year. And I've definitely had a lot of questions on if the fixed gear category is coming back and all that stuff. Obviously you're on the podcast, so that basically says yes.
Indeed it is, and we're very excited. We're actually going to partner with the Fixation Open this year and do a men's and women's Fixation Open. It's actually not going to be part of the series. It's going to be more of an exhibition event, but looking forward to hopefully making it part of the Fixation Open series in 2019. But yes, fixed gear racing will be back inside the Velorama Festival for 2018.
Cool. And so for everybody that's listening that wants to do the fixed gear crit, what can they expect?
It's definitely going to be a little bit different than last year. Last year, when we had our two separate worlds, where we had kind of a bike race area in the Rhino Arts District and then a music festival in the Coors Field parking lot, with them being joined, you'll get to come and check in at a designated check-in spot. If you're early enough, you may actually get to ride a lap or two of the course. The way the schedule is shaping up this year, Stage 3 of the Colorado Classic, the men will actually take off. They'll do 2 laps of the festival grounds and then take off on a 102-mile journey for the day. And immediately after they leave the festival grounds, the fixed gear women will start and do a 30-minute race. And it's a crit lap. It's got a little more texture than last year's course, which was basically a 4-corner square. We're hoping to work in a few more turns and at least add a few technical features to it to make it a little more than your average parking trip around a parking lot. And then after the women, the men will race. And about the time that finishes up, the women's Stage 3 for the Colorado Classic will be getting going. And then once they finish they do also do a criterium that day. And then once the men get back in, the music starts, and additionally there'll be other activities going on throughout the course of the day.
So tell me a little bit about why Velorama decided to add a fixed gear crit category in the race.
last year and especially this year. So last year, it ultimately, it's a great cultural connection between music and bike racing. It definitely just, the two mesh together really, really well. Professional road racing and a music festival, it's a much tougher union. Fixed gear, very natural. So it was very easy this year to make sure that our fixed gear categories continued on. And we're really looking forward to making sure they're a big part of this year's event.
So I'm curious just a little bit about the partnership with Fixation. Like, how is that looking? Because I had them on the podcast as well, and I know a lot of people are traveling out to race Fixation. So how are they helping bring people to Colorado?
We're just going through the motions right now. Really, we're looking at this as a great way to amplify the quality of our event this year, but then more importantly, looking forward to making it a bigger and better race in 2019. We're really looking at seeing how it's going to fit into the series schedule for 2019. But for this year, they will actually bring some staff, and so it'll be the regular Fixation open race rules that are in effect, bike checks, etc. So it's definitely going to raise the quality of what we're providing. And then additionally, there'll be a little bit of prize money for men and women, and products for men and women as well.
So can you give us some details about the race, like the dates and registration and all that stuff?
Race date is Saturday, August 18th, and time, men will be at approximately 11:05, women at approximately 10:30. Registration should be open in the next couple of weeks via the USA Cycling website, and you should look for a press release from Fixation and Velorama when all of that is set and ready to go.
Is there anything else we need to cover?
We're really looking forward to seeing a big fixed gear presence this year. And if there's any questions people have, ideas people have, we would love to hear them. And so feel free to send those my way.
Cool. And where can people find more info?
VeloramaFestival.com.
Hey, thanks for coming on, John.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Really appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Kelly Neuner. I'm a track racer, and I'm also a user experience designer, and I'm captain of the women's New York City-based team, Formula Femme.
Cool. So talk a little bit about your history with cycling and how you got involved with it.
Well, a few years ago, I had a lot of really bad hip pain and ended up having surgery for it. And after that, they recommended cycling. It was a big rehab activity for that. And I had a crappy 3-speed bike. I upgraded to a Purifix that I had set up single speed, and I rode that to work. I got more into cycling once I did the 5-borough bike tour for the ASPCA at the time, raising money for it. And I got into doing longer distance rides. And I was looking to just get more seriously into it. I went to a couple of road rides at different shops, but it didn't feel like the right fit for me. I showed up on a single speed. I didn't have the clipped-in pedals and all of the fancy outfits and everything like that. So I eventually ended up finding this social riding group called Flawed that met every Tuesday night. And it was just a whole bunch of different people from, messengers to commuters to students. And we'd go and get ice cream or go hang out in the park. And that was where I got more interested in cycling and learned more about different ways you could be involved in that. Before that, I'd been considering, potentially doing triathlons. I think there was a part of me that liked the competitive aspect, but was kind of bored by the the charity rides are great, but I just, going kind of slowly along for 50 miles or so wasn't really my thing. And then one of the women suggested starting a track team, and I was like, I've never ridden fixed gear before, but that sounds cool, and I want to do that. yeah, we started that in November a couple of years ago. I, picked up a couple of extra jobs to, raise money to get like the bike and everything like that, and started racing in April, I guess about 3 years ago.
That's amazing. And was that team that got started, was that Formula Femme?
Yeah, exactly. So, there'd always been women racing track in New York, but it seems like it kind of ebbed and flowed. So some years there'd be more, some years there'd be less. The first year we raced, that was really one of our goals, was growing the field, so that there would always be a full field. And, there was the minimum field size was met so people could category up and just making it more competitive. So most, we have regular racing every Wednesday night, and most weeks it was, a handful of us and these two junior women who were like super strong and would just kick our ass every week. Sometimes they'd go like a little bit slower with us for a bit, but would tend to just like pull away and win every time. And that was like the first year. And then it was really great because the second year we set out like a recruitment form, and we got a really incredible response. 26 or 28 different women applied for what we were anticipating to be like 4 spots on the team. And it kind of really helped grow a lot of excitement out of that. There were like 3 new teams that started, and it was just really awesome to have all these other people to compete against. And so, yeah, in the second year, we went from, maybe having like 5 or 6 women to having like 20 women on Wednesday night at the end of the summer, and being able to separate the different categories, which was just a really awesome feeling and really incredible.
Yeah. So let's go back to that progression from going from riding the single speed to riding like the fixed gear bike, the Pure Fix. How did that progression happen, and like, what bike did you end up with?
Oh, yeah. And it's like a very long story. I skip kind of ahead. So
that's great.
I mean,
I
that
like
bike
long
took
stories.
me yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I mean, I had that one. It was my everything bike. I took it. I did the 5-row bike tour. I did this one like 55-mile ride in Poughkeepsie where we chose like the longer route, and we got to like the rest area where they had free sandwiches. Everybody was like, "You are doing this on a single speed," because there was a ton of hills. It was like brutal and like drizzling rain. So yeah, I decided that I wanted to get a road bike. I don't know. I got one, didn't really like it. I still had the Pure Fix and mostly rode that around. And then when it came to, skipping ahead to racing track, I couldn't race that because it was their commuter. So we originally were going to get the All City, but I'm 5 feet tall. I'm a really short person, so that their smallest size, even with like the shortest stem, didn't really fit me very well. So I got a small continuum frame with 650 wheels. That was just like the true track geometry, just, shrunk down. That's why it had the 650 wheels, which are harder to find. Not a lot of people make bikes with those. I personally love them. And then the next year,
I feel like 650 is like coming up in gravel, but like it hasn't really like not a lot of fixed gear stuff, especially.
Yeah, and it's like funny because they have like the Pursuit frame that has a 650 in the front, but just I think my only bike that doesn't have 650 wheels at this point is like my old commuter road bike, which I converted because it was too large for me. Like my regular road bike I use for training has 650 wheels. My touring bike has 650B wheels. But yeah, I love the 650C wheels. They're great, like super fast, and they're just sized appropriately for somebody my height. So, so the second year, I had been talking to Anna Schwinn of like Waterford and Gunner, and she was talking about how she wanted to make track frames for small people. So she was like, "Are you interested?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So we had another woman joining our team who was short like me. I was like, "Great, I will sell you my Continuum and build up a new bike." So I got the Gunner Track Star, which is like steel frame. I got wheels with these like really sparkly Suzu Pro Max disco hubs built up. I got like the last set of 28 hole, I think, like in the world. It was really hard to find because I'd already ordered the rims, and I don't know, the first set coming from England got lost somehow. And yeah, I love that bike so much. I wish I could ride around more, but definitely don't want to leave it like locked up on the streets.
Right. It's a beautiful bike
It's
too.
like, yeah, it's my favorite. It's like, I love getting to, ride it whenever I travel for races, a little more, but definitely wouldn't want to leave it in, outside New York.
Oh no, I feel you there. So let's talk about your progression with track cycling and your history with doing fixed gear crits.
Okay. So yeah, the first year, like I said, it was mostly like probably 5 or 6 women. I was dead last pretty much every race. But I was a pretty avid student of anything training related. So like the Cyclist Training Bible, some sports psychology books, and just really read them pretty fastidiously and applied, created my own training plan and applied that. And by the end of my first year, I was starting to, place better in races. And I got silver at our state championships. So I set, my goal for the next year. I was like, all right, I want to get gold at state championships. And I planned to train, that entire winter, really strengthen things up. But like I told you in the beginning that I had hip surgery, I started having pain again and needed to have another surgery to take out some scar tissue and repair tears in there. So I kind of cut that short, and I wasn't able to start my second season until June of last year.
Oh, that's such a bummer.
Yeah, I was, there was the one thing I really wanted was all right, I'm going to come into the season strong, do a bunch of training. And I had to basically, I had surgery in I guess it was last December, not the most recent one. And I had to start from the beginnings, while all of my teammates and friends were racing, our big series in every April, 6 days of Casena, taking its name from the 6 days racing, in Europe. It's usually 3 to 4 different weekends through April, and sometimes May, and it's our really big flagship series. And I spent that season, I basically official instead, so I became a registered official, so I could still have something to do while I was at the races. And then I just really, I treated physical therapy like it was my job and focused really on rehabbing and strengthening everything. And tried to just come back strong into the season. So getting into the fixed gear crits, a few of my teammates did Red Hook crit as in Brooklyn as their first crit, and that seemed really intimidating. So I was asking a friend of mine, if there were any more, accessible ones to practice before trying it next year. And she recommended the fixation series. So I went out to Chicago last July and, signed up, did those races. The first day I got dropped pretty much immediately and spent the entire race in I don't know, it's a 90-degree day, just alone off the back. There's a false flat, so you're going just slightly uphill during that final stretch. But we had a really great group of people who had traveled from New York to do the races, and they cheered me on, even though I was struggling. And then the second day, I just made sure, the one thing I learned from the first day was don't lose a wheel, because once you lose a wheel, you're screwed and you're just doing all this work by yourself. So no matter what, I was not losing a wheel, and I stayed off the main chase pack and got 5th place. It was kind of a photo finish sort of moment where I was sprinting alongside this one rider from state, and it was just really close. So I was I want to do more of that. I want to do that again. And we went, and that's how I got into the fixed crit scene.
That's awesome. Yeah, your first crit sounds exactly like my first experience, where I pretty much immediately got dropped and then spent the whole time just trying to catch the group and never did. Yeah,
exactly. You're kind of looking behind you, I think they're might be close to lapping me, but I'm not sure. But it was great, it's nice to have like the announcer, and there's all, at the fixed crits, there's all these people like staying on the sidelines, like cheering you in this kind of sleepy suburban Chicago town, like people just sitting out on their lawns. And so it felt nice, even though you're just kind of completely alone at the back, you're like, all right, somebody's cheering you on, and that's really what matters. So the second day, I was, kind of afraid, like, all right, like I have no, I had surgery like 6 months ago. I don't know how this is going to feel tomorrow. Like, still kind of treating things cautiously because I didn't want to injure myself further. But my legs felt like pretty fresh. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to, kind of change like whatever my nutrition strategy is. Our skin suits had this little, I guess it's like the little pocket for the race radio, but you can also put like a bag of ice back there. So I did that to kind of keep cool because it was sunny and hot again. And yeah, just staying on a wheel, and heard other people cheering. I did a series. I'm also an editor for Pretty Damn Fast, and I did an interview series last year where I interviewed a few different women who raced Red Hook, just kind of hearing about their experiences, and heard like one of the women from Chicago who came out and raced, like cheering for me, and you're like, all right, this is great.
Yeah, that actually like brings up the next thing I was going to ask about, which is Pretty Damned Fast. How did you get involved with that? And do you want to tell people what it is? And that's actually kind of how I became aware of you, because I was looking up info about the fixation crit, and then my friend Addie also writes for Pretty Damn Fast and came across like the no crash course and fixed gear crits article that you wrote.
Okay.
So yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about Pretty Damn Fast, and it's such a rad project.
Yeah. So, I knew Anna Maria, I can't remember. I think I'd offered, let's see. Oh, okay. Like I think that was actually one of the first group rides I did, was a Pretty Damn Fast and like Machines for Freedom, like road ride, that one of my friends found. This is the one where I showed up like without, I don't know, with the single speed and like without flare retention. But yeah, so they offered to be our media sponsor for our team to kind of give us, a platform to kind of talk more about racing in our first season, and hopefully get more women into the sport, across the country by being able to share our story. So, since I was doing more of the racing focused stuff, I kind of pitched a couple ideas for stories around racing, since I think like that and like the East Coast racing scene like weren't as covered, and talked to Anna Marie about kind of stepping up that role and covering more of it, since I did have like these goals around like racing and just getting more women into fixed grits and track racing, and hopefully talking to more women besides myself and my teammates to kind of just show the different areas you come from. And then with the Red Hook series, the year before, we had a friend from Minneapolis come to town, or Tiana Johnson, who was a really great, like rad, awesome racer and person. And it was just like really, inspiring to see her. She like did like an awesome job, like handling the course and just racing, and it was super inspiring. Got a bunch of us really excited about racing the next year. And when you looked at, like the media coverage, kind of covers the same couple of people, which is, great, but I wanted to expand the coverage beyond the first few people and kind of get deeper into, people's stories around how they got into racing and what it means to them. So I kind of, looked through the roster, try to pick out, a couple other people, that I hadn't heard of. And we also, the year before, hosted this social for women, trans, and gender nonconforming people to come hang out after Red Hook, and I met this other woman, Andrea from Baltimore. So I was like, I want to interview her because she was telling me her story about how she was one of the only women who raced fixed around there, like one of the only women messengers, and it's just showing, I guess, people that you can, even if you're the only person, like you can still do it wherever. Just giving people an inside look into how different people got started, kind of like you do with this podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to do, as far as just getting out the info and interviewing different kinds of folks. I think that's incredibly important because I don't only want to always hear from the same people over and over again.
Yeah. And exactly. And you hear, like a lot of the same kind of surface level coverage, but it's really those deeper backstories and just talking to more different people. Cause you don't know, that's kind of somebody's local hero. So when they see them covered somewhere, it's really awesome and inspiring to have somebody telling that story in full. And telling more of the women's stories, more stories of people of color and giving people that platform so that, no matter where you come from, you see that there's a place for you in racing. That's one of the things I love most about the fixed gear scene, especially the fixed crit scene is, it feels like a lower barrier to entry. It's a lot more accessible in terms of the type of bike, and you don't have to have, too much fancy stuff. Like I'm at Mission Crit, there are people racing in jean shorts and tank tops. You don't need to have all of this stuff. All you need is a bike and just going fast, turning left and sometimes right.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you went out to Mission Crit and Red Hook this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that your first experience doing those races?
Yeah, I met James, who was one of the organizers of Mission Crit last year at Red Hook, and he was talking about kind of how they wanted to get more women into it. So I really set my sights on that race and getting, more of my teammates and other people in this community to come out and race it. So we ended up getting, I think three of my teammates and a couple other women locally to go out and race it. It was really awesome that, Machines for Freedom sponsored it. So the registration was cheaper this year, but I know that they've done really great things to make the race more accessible. I think they had the first timer discount last year. And that's it was such a fun experience. It's really, Red Hook is great. But it's very, I don't know. It's definitely a little more glitzy, and I feel like Mission Crit still has more of that community and local connection, and energy around it. That's really exciting to be part of.
Absolutely. Mission Crit seems like just such a rad event. I'm hoping I can make it out next year, which I'm pretty sure I'll be able to. And it was really cool because I got to let Claire from Mission Crit and Katie, who is one of the announcers, I basically let them take over my podcast so we could talk about the women's field and stuff. It was really fun. It was one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, I listened to that episode. That's another thing I really like about the fixed gear racing and track community. I'm also on the local racing association board for New York, and I think the attitudes around making racing more inclusive and equal are just a lot more progressive in the fixed gear and track scenes. There's still a lot of issues in road and other disciplines with unequal payout and scheduling. I've done cross, but it's I get, put with 12-year-old boys and stuff like that. And it's not as fun to race that way. So, that's what I really appreciate about, I think a lot, the organizers and just the whole, track and fixed gear racing scene is it is more committed to being more inclusive and making it equal for everyone. And that's just kind of a given and not something, you have to kind of constantly argue for and get shot down on.
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw this race in Colorado that they had a BMX competition, and then they posted pictures from the race, and then the first woman won $350, and then the first place man won $800, and then every comment was why is this still a thing? And they didn't respond at all. And I was so disappointed to see that in this, what was supposed to be a really rad event in this, in BMX. And you think it would be more progressive too, but not so much.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that's one thing I appreciate about Mission Crit is that, they just came out and they were yeah, it was never a question on whether or not there would be equal payout,
Yeah, exactly. And I see that at our local velodrome as well. And it just, I think it's because it comes from a different scene than this super, I guess, organized tradition or whatever. Not all traditions need to be followed or keep going. And it just makes it a better experience for everyone, because if you're putting in the same work and paying the same registration fee, but, getting your payout cut and it's, 50 to 30% of what men get, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and then there's still a debate about podium girls. I'm just, I don't understand.
I think podium pups and podium pizza are both great alternatives. They're very popular at our track.
That's funny. Yeah. So, yeah, I kind of want to get into painting a picture of what your day was like and your experience was like at Mission Crit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I left the place where we were staying. It was later in the afternoon. It was great. So sleeping in, I went back to, get all of my stuff together for the day, probably forgot a couple of things and headed back. And yeah, we got to the venue, kind of waiting online for our timing cards, and then unfortunately missed an opportunity to pre-ride the course, which is a mistake I won't make again. Cause yeah, you don't want the first time you see the turns to be like when you're on, racing.
Yeah, you're going full gas already.
Yeah, exactly. You're just dealing with a bunch of other people and not able, in a bunch and not able to take it at your own pace. So, let's see, kind of like set up an area with me and, my teammates and friends, warmed up on the rollers for a bit. Let's see, I don't know, timing all of my different like energy blocks and stuff like that, and drinking the last sips of water like before. And then, yeah, just like doing like, not the pre-ride, but, you go around the course like at a kind of a slower pace and all line up and they call everybody's names in order. And then, yeah, it was like on and like taking off. I did another crit last year in Montreal called Jackalope, and I crashed in that. So I was still a little bit, a little bit like shyer or like less aggressive in handling the corners because I was just, afraid of like someone else crashing in front of me or, wiping out again. But like, as, the race progressed, like, it gets more fun to you start to like follow other people's lines, see what they're taking, feel the course more and, go around everything. I remember there's this one uphill right by like the corner of the market that I thought I'd really have to like power up, but you're just getting like so much speed. You just like cruise right up it, go down like the chicane. There's like a big straightaway in the back. And then this like, sweeping turn with, photographer's lights shooting at you in every corner, and you can hear people cheering. I heard somebody, cheering for my bike frame, essentially being like, "Oh, cool, it's a gunner," which was great. Like, we don't see that many of them on the East Coast, but I think they're definitely, bigger out on the West Coast. I've actually seen them in shops, so it was just funny to see or to hear that each time. Yeah, the hairpin was definitely tricky, being able to kind of be behind other people and see where they're scrubbing speed and what lines they're taking. But, we get that chance to just kind of bomb around the different corners. Yeah, it was really fun. I wasn't quite in the shape I would have liked to have been for it. I had like a herniated disc in my back and hadn't really been training for a couple months. But it was still really, really fun.
Yeah. And, how did Red Hook go for you?
Oh, Red Hook was good. I wasn't originally, planning on it since I had been, off the bike for a couple of months. But I took a look at the course and, like only one of my teammates was doing it. I was like, all right, I'm going to sign up. Like, I know I'm going to be dropped right away, but I'm just going to do it. And yeah, it was pretty nerve wracking. We got there, really early because the pre-ride was only open from, I think, like 9 to 10 or 10 to 11. And then it was kind of like a long day of like sitting there and waiting until our qualifier won, finding rollers to warm up on. And you're with all these like, it's like Fixie Fashion Week is what people call it. Cause everybody's got like their new bikes and like kits and like matching things. And you're like, I'm just out here definitely like not in shape for this right now. But, luckily since that's kind of like the hometown race, I had like a lot of friends there, cheering me on who were all from different like walks of cycling life, which was great. I had a bunch of, like bike camping and polo friends like cheering me up at the finish line. So, even when I was out there alone, there were still like my friends cheering for me. And, when you got like little beep beep of the moto, I would just like go by and like give them a high five, like on my way off the course.
That's funny.
So, yeah.
What's coming up next for you?
So next for me will be the fixation series. I'm going to the ones in Milwaukee at the end of June, and then I'll also be doing Bone Machine in Portland. So those are the next 6 crits I'm doing. And besides that, just racing locally at Casena, which is our velodrome in Queens, and then out at Trexlertown in Pennsylvania as much as I can.
That's awesome. I'm particularly excited for Bone Machine.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. And I've been, really just focusing, on the training and everything like that to get into shape for that and feel more confident going into it. And then let's see. Besides that, I guess, Red Hook Barcelona was on my, list of a race I wanted to do last year, but didn't. So I would love to do that this year, and going to the Fixed Gear Classic in Minneapolis.
The Fixed Gear Classic? I haven't even heard of that one.
Oh yeah, it is at Minneapolis Velodrome, and it's like all the best track racers from around the country come and race. I believe I don't know if they had a category 4 before, but they do now. Yeah, it's really competitive. Like all the best, like Cat 1, 2, 3 racers come out, and Minneapolis has a really great community of people. So I'm excited to just go out there, race that velodrome, and hang out. After we did Mission Crit, my friend and I ended up doing this like kind of like little California coast like bike camping trip where we like found a hostel like 30 miles down the coast, but she took us up this one mountain bike trail on our track bikes. It's called Planet of the Apes because it looks so surreal. And that was like over my birthday weekend. So I was just like, here's to doing more dumb stuff on fixed gear bikes this year.
That's really fun. I kind of think that the tracklocross, like resistance racing stuff looks really fun.
I know it does. I'm like, I need to get like a crappier wheel set for my bike. Maybe.
I know, right? I've been thinking like maybe I'll get like a Surly steamroller or something that I can just like beat up.
Yeah, I know. The more I ride my race bike, the more I'm like, maybe I should just get like a really, crappy commuter bike that I can lock up, because it is just more fun riding fixed. Like you just have this different connection and attention with your bike, and it just feels I don't know, everything feels smoother somehow with just the way you're moving. So
yeah, absolutely. Is that kind of what drew you to the sport in general, was just that connection, or was it the whole community around it? Or
I think it's a combination of both, because that's a big thing I think people miss, is that you do need to really build that community, because that's what people come back for. Racing's fun, but it's definitely hard. Nobody's kind of coming back for like the Sufferfest as much. It's like the fun you have with your friends, new and old, afterwards. In terms of, I guess, like the attraction to the scene, so there's like the community, and then I was a competitive horseback rider growing up, so I think there's always kind of been some, competitiveness and just need to strive towards a goal. Like I may never be the best racer in the world, but hopefully by, trying hard and getting to whatever my top level is, like, somebody else who is a better racer who may not have considered racing track before will try it, and they'll take it to the next level, kind of inspiring whoever the next generation of like really awesome racers and riders are.
Absolutely. What are some of your big goals as far as cycling goes?
Let's see. I really want to see where some of the fixed crits take me. The track racing is, fun, and I like the short, intense bursts, but it's nice to kind of have a little more time to, I don't know, play with things like in the field, think about strategies, stuff like that. So I would love to race more overseas next year, like Rad Race and whatever other fixed crits I probably haven't heard of yet, within the next couple of years. Another one of my goals is to race or ride at every velodrome in North America. So I don't know, maybe there's like a little like track road trip in my future to travel around and race or ride at all of them. Besides that, I don't really set goals in terms of like winning or placing as much. It's really just trying to reach whatever the top of my level of achievement can be, if that makes sense.
No, totally. I wonder if there's something about, because like you mentioned that people aren't really coming back for the Sufferfest anymore, and I feel like there was definitely like this attitude of cycling like back in the day that was all about the Sufferfest, and now with like the popularity of like gravel and fixed gear crits and stuff like that, I wonder if it's like changing to just more about people challenging themselves and just like having fun and that sense of community that you get. I would think if there's something to that, because I notice a lot of the old fixed gear people and stuff like that are kind of like experimenting with all kinds of different racing, but rarely is it like traditional road racing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's shorter, it's more accessible, it's definitely more fun, because if you go to a road race, it's like 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and nobody's like hanging out afterwards. So, but if you go to this fixed gear event, it's like you're in town for a whole weekend, and it's the whole thing. You're meeting new people, like making new friends, eating great food, like seeing some like the city from somebody else's perspective for wherever you're traveling. And then the race is kind of a small part of that. It's just like the central hub around which everything else happens. It's still important, but it's really like the platform for something more than that. And yeah, it's definitely, I think it's a bigger trend is it's kind of just being part of a community, and then the race is just one aspect of that.
Absolutely. So off of racing, well, I guess it's not completely off topic, but what are you listening to when you're training right now?
Okay. Let's see. I just did, me and my teammates did a Robin themed spin class at this one place that was offering it. So I added that to my playlist for my like longer tempo rides. It's got like a good rhythm and keeps me going even when I really want to stop, like the threshold things and everything. And then one of Grimes' albums is like really good for cycling for whatever reason. Like the flow of it just like, I don't know, it warms you up well. There's a couple of faster songs, like a slower song, so it tends to go well with like whatever my planned interval workout is. And then for weightlifting, it's usually some sort of like hardcore, like heavy stuff.
That's funny. When I'm like, sometimes I go through periods where I just want to listen to like soft music when I'm going like uphill or something, just so I can kind of like zone out. But I've been doing more intense training lately, so I've been like, Minor Threat.
Yeah, I think I need to add some heavier things, because it's like sometimes it can be like a little bit too mellow, and then I'm like, okay, like I think my heart rate's dropping a little bit, like RPM's like a little lower. But I like kind of like arranged it so that the slower, like softer music is towards the end when I'm supposed to be cooling down anyway, because I definitely can feel that.
Absolutely. What are you... So I haven't had many people on here that are also vegan, so I want to nerd out about food a little bit. What are you like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love food. Like any of my teammates can tell you that I love food. It's like...
Oh yeah, me too. Like that's one of my favorite parts about cycling is that whenever I do a really big day or something like that, I can just feel good about eating whenever I want. So
Yeah.
But what are you doing right now for like breakfasts or like to fuel your rides or fuel your training? And then what are your like rewards for yourself that you're like really stoked on after a ride?
Okay, cool. I've been experimenting with some different, I'm a big baker, so experimenting with different like high protein recipes that have like a better balance of like protein to carbs. So I made this like pumpkin chocolate chip bread that used like vital wheat gluten, which was like kind of random, but turned out pretty good. So I would usually have that. Coffee with oat milk is very essential before any training ride. So yeah, do that, like sit around, eat that for like an hour, go out on my ride, come back and have a protein shake. I get True Nutrition. It's like you can buy it in bulk online and create your own mixes with your own add-ins, and they have really good flavors and are probably like half the price of a lot of other vegan brands. So that's my favorite. I'll have a scoop of that afterwards. I go to Trader Joe's and get like the Tofurkey stuff, tofu, put it on salad with pumpkin seeds because they're really good, like protein and iron content. Let's see, anything like kind of like burrito themed, so like rice and beans, stuff like that. I got vegan Caesar salad dressing, which tend to be like the kind of things I go back to. And yeah, that's what I would say for like training type stuff. I try and keep it mostly whole foods based. I used to like more of the processed stuff, but I've been kind of going a little bit more away from that and keeping things simple. So I'm kind of like thinking about it less. Although I do like all the different vegan cheeses, like the Violife and Miyoko's, which are the fancier, like aged ones. So those are like nice little treats sometimes. And then in terms of riding treats, I'm a big donut person. So like that's kind of the first thing I look for whenever I go. I'm planning to travel. I'm like, all right, where are the vegan donuts at?
I have a tip. I don't know if you've been there, but me and my wife were just in Oklahoma City. And, oh shit, what was the name of this place? Holy Rollers.
Oh my gosh.
It's randomly in Oklahoma City in like the art district, and it's an all vegan donut shop.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
like
it was
when
amazing.
I do
It was amazing. Yeah, it was like
that's awesome.
The maple donuts and coconut cream stuff, and it was all like good ingredients too, which I really appreciated. It wasn't just like, I mean, it was fried like, donuts, but they put thought into it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, where it's not just like kind of identical tasting sugar bombs or different colors. Cause I noticed in terms of, like riding and training, like it's nice to eat that, but then you're definitely not feeling super great afterwards. Right. So, I'll have to check that out. Like maybe when I do my like North American velodrome tour.
Right. Yeah.
Like I found like, some vegan donut place on Instagram, and I'm kind of half planning a weird like bike tour where I go down to like Philly and then somehow it's like 50 miles outside of Baltimore to this one vegan donut place. I'm like, maybe I'll do that. Like, I don't know, in the next couple of weeks. Like I'm planning a bike tour on donuts.
That's amazing. I think we hit everything I wanted to hit. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, our team, we're sponsored by a few different great places. Sid's Bikes, they do awesome service and fits in New York. Dank Banana Bread, they have awesome vegan banana bread. And the owner, Caitlin, is really amazing. I'm sure I'm going to forget somebody. I'm like trying to piece together the back of our kits right now. But yeah, I mean, like we've just been really like, I don't know. It's been really exciting to have so many people excited to, work with us and just really stoked on growing women's racing. I was telling you that I was working as a race official, and I think it was like watching, races and kind of hearing what like, just seeing like what strategies people used or people thinking women's racing is boring. I was like, all right, I'm going to make it my job to have like the fitness to kind of be able to be more of an antagonist in races and stuff like that. So it's just exciting seeing people, seeing women's racing for what it is, which is like just as exciting. Anyway, continuing with the sponsor part. So Cliff Bar as well, to write all of our like shot blocks and stuff like that to keep us going during some very intense crits. Avis Security has been a big supporter of ours as well. Pretty Damn Fast for media sponsorship. Podium Wear do our really rad kits. They're super comfortable, and if you want like anything custom, I would definitely go with them because they're great to work with. And then RZ Designs, who's Roz Patterson, who's designed all of our kits since the beginning and always does a really amazing job. And we're like, especially excited about this year. They're super bright. And then Spy Optic, who are providing us with sunglasses this year. They have this really cool like technology, so like everything's super clear. And yeah.
And tell people where they can find you and your writing on Instagram and Formula Femme.
So Formula Femme, you can find all of us and follow us and just kind of stay up to date on different things happening in the women's community. You can go on, follow Pretty Damn Fast, which is the women's cycling website I'm an editor of. And then I'm on Instagram as Bean and Kel, which is named after my dog and me. Because my dog's name is Bean, so it's probably easier if you just go to Formula Femme and find it that way.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to like interview me and just like for everything you're doing to promote, racing.
All right, that does it for another episode of Save the Track Bike. Thank you so much for tuning in. Just so you guys know, I am going to take the month of July from doing any big episodes. We'll have a couple sprints during that time, but we won't have any full interviews until August. So that'll give me some time to like regroup, to pull in some more support, get some better equipment, and take the time to really like grow this podcast. So I appreciate all the support so far. And yeah. Again, this podcast is sponsored by Hexagon Cycles. That's hexagoncycles.com. Go to savethetrackbike.com. Visit us on Instagram at savethetrackbike. And the music is Slag Girl by Vitamin Pets. And yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.